Hey guys, we're going to be talking about writing our narratives. Narratives are story, and story starts with character. And so we've been talking about in our narratives, we want to have our characters moving, talking, thinking. If we have characters moving, talking, thinking, then our story is going to be a whole lot more interesting. So we are going to use a book that has some picture prompts in it, and we're going to look at how another student used the picture prompts. You're going to see how Mrs. Rohr would use the picture prompts to put characters moving, talking, thinking in it. And then I'm going to show you your assignment of what you're going to be working on in your Schoology writing time. So let's get started. The book is called Harris Burdick, The Mysteries of Harris Burdick. And basically what happened was a guy went to a book company publisher and said he dropped off pages that just had his pictures in it. And so he had the title of the book and then a caption that went with it. And he said, if you like any of the stories, I can bring the rest of the stories in. And then he left. So the guy, Harris Burdick, creator of the pictures, left. And he never came back. And the publisher tried to find him and he just disappeared. He could not find Harris Burdick at all. So he kept the pictures. And across the years, he had his kids and his grandkids. They would look at the pictures and then they would try to imagine what was happening in the story. And then they would make stories out of it. And so this book was put together by an author, Chris Ellsberg. He's the author of Jumanji and some other like fantasy-like books. And he decided to get them put into an actual book that people could buy and just enjoy the pictures with the title and then one like subtitle. So you have more clues about what the mystery is about. So across the years, people have written about these pictures. No one knows what the actual story was because the author, disappeared. So after this book was published, and it was made, I believe, in the 1980s. It's first printed in 1984. So many years ago. So this guy who created it probably made those before the 1980s, maybe the 70s. So a long time ago. So people have tried to tell the story, and this book actually has the chronicles of Harris Burdick, and it's put together by Chris Ellsberg again. And what he did is he invited all of these authors along the edge to actually go through each one of the pages, and they wrote they wrote the story that went with the picture. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at one of the pictures and seeing how another student wrote the story. We're going to decide if they use characters talking, moving, thinking, and then we're also going to see how Mrs. Rohr will go out looking at a picture and writing, because eventually, when the video is done, you're going to take a picture from the book and you're going to create your own story, getting your characters moving, talking, thinking. Okay, so let's get started. So the picture that I'm going to use for my writing is this one. And I can see lots of details in the picture, and I can make decisions about what I think is happening in here. Other people have tried and done the same. So this is what a second grader named Jacob thought was happening in this picture. He said, one night, a girl named Ruby, who was 10 years old, went to the library to get a book because she loved books. The librarian, named Mr. Klein, warned her not to get the ancient book because it killed a boy named Jack. She didn't hear him because she was playing music on her headphones. She took her book home and read it. As she was dreaming, the vine pulled her right into the book. And as she was dreaming about candy canes and gumdrops, it all changed into a story. And the only way she could get out of the book was beating the fairy tale in the book. So the first fairy tale was Jack and the Beanstalk. So that's the story of what's happening here. I'm going to look at the picture and I'm going to think, how can I write like that? So let me go back to what Jacob did. Let's start by trying to imagine, do we have characters moving? Talk to your partner. What sentences show the character moving? Pause my video and talk. Okay, you should have talked here for a little bit, and you probably mentioned that the character went to the library. That's moving. The librarian named Mr. Klein warned her not to get the ancient book because it killed a boy named Jack. So this one is an interesting one. You can infer that Mr. Klein warned her by talking. He could have been writing, but we're going to call this characters talking. She didn't hear him because she was playing her music on her headphones. So this is another action. You can see the character with the headphones on, not listening. She took the book home and read it. Again, characters moving. And as she was reading it, the vine pulled her right into the book. So characters moving again, the vine's pulling her in. As she was dreaming about candy canes and gumdrops, it all changed into a story. Not characters moving, talking, or thinking. The only way she could get out of the book was beating the fairy tale in the book. The first fairy tale was Jack and the Beanstalk. So we have characters moving, yes. Do we have characters talking? pause the video and talk with your partner? Do we have characters talking? I think there was only one, and we didn't have exactly what they said. It just was Mr. Klein warned her not to go get the ancient book. So we have some communication there, some talking. And then thinking. Do we have any thinking here? Warned her to get the ancient book. She didn't hear him. She took the book home. I don't see any thinking here. She was reading it, and I pulled her right into the book. The vine pulled her right back in. So that's another moving. I don't think we have any talking. We don't have or any thinking. She's not thinking about the book. Mr. Klein's not thinking. I mean, he could be, but it's not written in the story. So we don't have any evidence of characters thinking. So we have characters moving, a lot of characters moving. We have one character talking. It's not necessarily exactly like what he said. He just warned the student not to get lost. But there isn't any thinking. So this author could go back in and put in the thinking. So here's my story. I'm going to have text box here. All right. And my character. Before I can start writing, I want to describe the character. And this author used a little bit. We know the girl, we have a name, we know how old they are, and we know that she loves books. Beyond that, we also know she likes to play music on her headphones. I think that's it for describing the character. So I'm going to see if I can add a little more description into my little text box. So there you are. So I'm going to start by trying to use a sentence to get the reader to imagine what is happening in the story. So I'm going to start with the thing that's like working and doing what it's supposed to do, the lamp. Okay? I just realized I'm saying girl a lot. So the glass lamp is on, but the girl lies still in her bed. She had an open book next to her. I need her to have a name. So that way I'm not saying the girl and she, because kind of needs to use it to describe her. So I'm going to say, instead of the girl, I'm going to say a name here. The glass lamp was on, but Leslie lies still in her bed. Just adding the name, even if it's a made-up name, kind of gives me a little bit more detail. So I can talk about Leslie, I can talk about where she's at. I can add more details about Leslie's personality that will help the reader know. So she had an open book next to her. Leslie always surrounded by books. She slept with them. She gardened with them. She even went to school. Now that's kind of an obvious one, isn't it? Or it's a weird one. Where you would take books. She even went roller skating with her book. Leslie would often fall asleep with her book next to her. Books were her favorite. Let's start a new paragraph. She's lying in bed, that's also moving. She had an open book next to her. She's lying surrounded by books. She always slept with them, so that's a little bit moving, like even though you don't move a whole lot, you can see what she's doing, it's her action. She gardened with them, more moving, and she even went roller skating with her book. Leslie would often fall asleep with her book next to her. Books were her favorite. One book had an interesting power over her. It made her want to visit spectacular places around the world. She would borrow travel books from the library and memorize places inside the books. So I'm looking at my story, and there is moving. There is not any talking because she's sleeping. I should say she's talking in her sleep. Ooh, that's an interesting twist. I'm going to rewrite it. The glass lamp was on, but Leslie lay still in her bed. She had an open book next to her. Leslie was always surrounded by books. She slept with them. She gardened with them. She even went roller skating with her book. Leslie would often fall asleep with her book next to her. Books were her favorite. One book had an interesting power over her. It made her want to visit spectacular places around the world. She would borrow travel books from the library and memorize the places inside the books. She even researched the plants she would find at these places. In her dreams, Leslie was racing through fields of these plants. She would laugh and take deep breaths racing through the fields. One night, she even yelled out in her dreams, "Stop." She yelled so loudly that she woke herself up, and she couldn't go back to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear, "Stop." I have characters talking, characters moving, and he's thinking. Leslie thought and thought about what needed to be stopped. She began to imagine ideas. Okay, so now it's your turn to do your writing. You're going to go into your writing folder. You're going to go to Wednesday. So your writing course in school, you're going to go Wednesday. The video that you're watching for the guest teacher is going to be posted up here, but you're actually going to watch it as a whole class. You're watching it right now. So on your checklist, just check off that you watched it as a class. And then you're going to come here to the Harris Burdick story, and the document, you'll open my document, and it will open and look like this. And you're going to be doing the this picture, and I will post it larger in your assignment so that way you can see it in here. Here is a larger picture. I will put this whole slideshow in there, so when you open up your assignment, you can flip through. You can see the example of this story, characters moving, talking, and thinking. You can see mine. I ended up color coding, so all of the blue is my character moving, all of the yellow is when my character is talking, and all of the pink is when my character is thinking. And so you can notice I don't have as much thinking, so I need to go and add that in, okay? So go, write, enjoy. I'm sorry my video got long. Hopefully the parts that I sped up and did faster, you were able to understand and still listen to it. I don't know. Basically, look at the picture, use characters talking, moving, thinking, put it into your own story about this guy. And what is happening here? So the title of the story is called Under the Rug. Can't wait to read them. Bye.